All right. I am about 15 minutes early. We're going to wait for some people to come in. Give me a thumbs up for all the early guys. Let me know if everybody can hear me, everybody can see me, and everything else. So tonight, I don't think we're going to do a lot of like technical stuff. A lot of it is probably going to be very generalized, and because I kind of want to know more about you guys than anything. So, like I said, we'll give 15 minutes to let other people come in. If you have any general questions, let me know. I always like to start off the show with just general questions. It doesn't have to be, striper related, okay? It could be bass, kayaks, boats, rods, reels, line, hooks, whatever. Go for it. Put them in the comments, and I'll answer. It's kind of like a mini hangout session before we kind of start. Coffee is still warm, so that's cool. Let me know where you guys are from too. I have no idea who I'm talking to. I know there's a lot of local guys that are here watching, but some of the guys are actually from out of state. We got some guys from California. We get guys from Minnesota. We get guys from Alaska. We got international people. A bunch of those guys. So let me know where everybody from. Where's my phone? Let me grab my phone. Yeah, it's pretty cold, man. Here in Oklahoma, we had a blizzard today, and I didn't go to work. What is the best way to mount a transducer on a Tarova? That one's a little tricky, just because of the way. Yeah, because of the way the shaft slides up and down. There's like a thing in the way. It kind of turns like that. That one's gonna be a little tricky to do. Traditionally, we mount them on the shaft, but the shaft doesn't move. Your Tarovas they move a lot, so it's a little tricky to do, man. I'll be honest with you. I don't have any experience with that, but I figured you put the trans. Well, there's mounts you can buy. So buy the specialized mount. Buy the mount. Put the transducer on the mount. The mount will clamp to the bottom of the Tarova, and then from there on up, put like one zip tie, and then basically skip all the way to the top of the head. Zip tie that, and then somehow you have to rig up some bungee system to keep all the wires from falling apart or getting stuck in the cracks and crevices, and then run into your fish finder. I mean, that's how I would do it. So I have an Ultrex, and we don't have those problems. So that's why I can't comment too much on that. Show us your buddy's new CTS rod he bought last year. I got like 3 buddies that bought CTS rods, so you gotta specify which one exactly. What? What's on the phone? All right, we got 8 guys on, but we only got 1 thumbs up. So all you guys, go press the thumbs up. It'll help me out in the YouTube like algorithms, so people can find this channel, and then we'll do more striper stuff for sure if we get more people interested. It's in the vest pocket? Nah, I thought it was, but this is my power pack. Oh yeah, somebody was asking about how to stay warm in the winter. Right here, it's electronic vest. This is pretty cool. So you got this vest, right? It's cheap too. I highly recommend it. It's like $27 on eBay, and you basically plug your power pack in it. It's USB. Okay, plug it in, press the button, turns red. I don't know if you guys can see that, but yeah. So it's turned red, or it turned red, and it warms up your whole belly area, the back, and a little bit on the shoulders too. So keeps pretty warm. The battery lasts, I would say about 4 to 5 hours on a single battery pack. Yeah, David. Good. Got out of work early today, huh? I didn't even go to work. I told work yesterday, if it snowed for more than 4 inches, I'm not coming in. But I could have made it in. It wasn't as bad as everybody was saying it was going to be. The snow was pretty good, but at least the roads weren't that bad. I drive a Tacoma too, so just put in 4-wheel drive and it'll pretty almost go almost everywhere. That's right, Mr. Vu Mix. Once you go striped bass, you ain't going back. That's the reality of it. That is the reality of it. So when we started fishing, right? Oh, getting too hot. Hold on, I'll turn this thing off. Getting too hot. Yeah, we started fishing in California, man. When I was growing up, it was like all bluegills and stuff, you know. And then it was bluegills with earthworms and waxworms, and then started doing crappie. Started doing crappies, and then we started doing a little bit here and there in bass, but bass was never the target. So we did crappies for a lot of years, and then we did carp for a lot of years, right? So the carp was the first fish that really gave you like that heart like thumping feeling, right? The adrenaline feeling. And then went to Massachusetts, continued crappie, continued carp a little bit, continued stripers. No, not stripers. Not yet. We knew about stripers, but we were never able to catch big stripers. We knew about stripers back in California too. So if you're from like the Fresno area or California area, you might know the lake that everybody refers to as 152. I think it's called Los Banos or something. I don't even know. I was too young to really fish up there, but my dad would always tell me about it, how they go up there during their I guess the early season, and they throw a bunch of tubes. Yeah, they were throwing tubes for stripers. You know, I was too small. I was only like 8. I never got a chance to go. And then moved to Massachusetts, the New England area, which is a premier striper like area in the world, right? So it was only a matter of time until you got exposed to the stripers. So we got up there, and probably for the first 3 years, we never even thought about striper fishing. It was still, bluegills, crappies, and bass, things like that. And I started asking the tackle shops, like, what do you guys throw, things like that. And then you always see like big pictures every time you walk into especially the mom and pop shops, the tackle shops. There's like a bulletin board of like bragging rights, right? So every time we go in, we'd always look at those pictures, and some of them were rolled, and some of them were like, those pictures of the Polaroids, or you guys know Polaroids, you know what I'm talking about. They were taken like, the following, just like a week ago, and they post them up, and I'd always be curious as to like what people are, how, what, and where they're catching all these giant fish. So after a while, some of my uncles, they moved from California, and they said that there's a new trick on 152, and they're throwing big jerk baits at night, just slow rolling jerk baits. So we started doing that. On top of that, we were doing the herring thing, where you would take a dip net out there and you'd catch bait that's 12, 14 inches, and you'd hook them on the head and cast them back out. And big stripers will get, big stripers. So we were always around the stripers. We just never really were diehards, right? Until one year, we got really exposed to it, like really good. We learned how to catch them real good. We learned about migration, uh, all that. We were still noobs at the time, but we've gotten better. Like it got to the point where the striper was not like a lucky fish you catch. The striper was the targeted species, right? You know what I mean when I say that? Like when you go out fishing, it's not, I hope I catch a striper today. It's more of like, we're targeting stripers today. Everything else is just, man, you know? So when we were out there, we first started once again ocean fishing, and the stripers up in New England, Massachusetts area, it's saltwater striper. That's why we came to Oklahoma. It's all freshwater, and also California. It's all freshwater stripers. As far as we know, we never made it to the Delta, so I guess the Delta is saltwater, and San Francisco Bay Area is saltwater. But we never even that was so yeah, they never got to San Francisco. So we first exposure to a striped bass for me personally was Massachusetts ocean water, saltwater, and then we got decently good at it. The gear wasn't nowhere near what we were doing now, but it was like a good entry. Like we all bought that, the traditional 8 foot rod, ugly stick, like that medium heavy action. Bought a good size reel, and everybody was throwing a 20 pound mono, and we're all throwing bombers. So it was pretty good for a while. And then we started, buying better gear, and then we moved to Oklahoma. We're all like, oh, that's done. No more stripers. We'll never see a striper again. And then we get down here. My uncle's already, one of our uncles from my mother's side, he's already down here. And he says, no, what are you guys talking about? There's plenty of stripers down here. Well, he lives in Arkansas. He lives like right on Lake Darnell, right? So then he goes, no, there's plenty of stripers. The stripers, they're just not that big. And we got down here, and once again, we didn't really pursue stripers. We had no idea how the stripers down here behaved, right? So we didn't chase stripers for a while, and then we started chasing stripers again. The whole Keystone thing started happening. One of our cousins here took us out during the summer months, and we were only catching stripers like this big, right? We went from catching stripers that were like this big to being very happy about catching a striper this size. You know, the major thing is in Oklahoma, there's no minimum size. In Massachusetts, I think it was 28 inches, which is 28 for an Oklahoma bass is really good size. That's a pretty good size, 28. Up in New England, they call them schoolies, so those are like little fish. But down here, 28 is a big deal. And I was really happy catching. I didn't know what I was doing, so I was really happy catching like 14, 15 inches. And then, that kind of steamrolled. And before you knew it, we were kind of the local kids that were catching a bunch of stripers. Not saying we're the best, but we were the local kids that were catching a lot of stripers. And then we would, the whole surf rod thing happened. The whole buy yourself a John boat happened. And then kayaks happened. Texoma happened. And I don't know, we're just really good at it. Stripers are still, I feel like, the number one fish in the United States, just because there's a lot of good things about them. Okay, there's a lot of good things about them that we're gonna try to cover some topics. I have a little sheet here written down about some of the things I'd like to just say about striper fishing and why it's so addictive. Okay, so when you look like the striper, the striper is just short. That's what we call them. The actual fish and game know them as striped bass or striped bass. So a striped bass is a fish that is not native to Oklahoma. It is not native to California. It is not native to the North Carolina lakes. It is not native to the Tennessee River at all. They were introduced. They were introduced because that fish they can control the shad population, and on top of that, they were really introduced to feed the public. And if you look at your history far enough back, all of your hybrids, all of your white bass, all of your stripers that are introduced by the game wardens. Okay, so it wasn't like this was illegally introduced. They were all introduced for the purpose of take or harvest. Okay, so when a lot of people, some people might be watching this, and they say that the stripers are not put there for you to harvest, that is absolutely not true. Go back in history, read the fine print. They manage it now so everybody can harvest these fish. So, number one reason is it is a good tasting fish. It's a great tasting fish. It's a white meat fish. They go from this size, which is probably your average panfish size, right? Your little 10 to 12 inch. And then they grow out to like 50 inches in fresh water. Well, I say that. I've never caught one that's 50, but I've seen numerous ones in the 40, 44-inch range. They grow that big, okay? So this fish has a lot to offer, okay? They grow really fast. They can obviously survive just about everywhere, but they tend to like cleaner, clear water. But we do have some lakes here that are super muddy, and they do just fine too. So the striped bass is one of my favorites. It's one of the team's favorites. All of our cousins, all of our friends, they love chasing the striped bass, and it's because it tastes good. Okay, and that's probably the number one reason. Okay, so if that's your number one reason too, let me know in the comments, because striped bass is just one of those things. It's really good because you think about it, you're about to spend 3 to 4. Some people spend thousands of dollars on these, on rod, reel, line, lures, setup, and you're about to tell me you're gonna catch and release. That makes absolutely no sense to me. Right? That makes no sense to me. If you go out, if you catch a fish, you should keep it. Okay? You should keep it. Same other crappie guys, right? You catch a crappie, if it is, depending on where you're from, your background, in your situation, right? Some people will catch and keep every single legal fish, or they'll harvest every single fish. That's legal, right? And some people will do a selective harvest, like the striper's too small. If I fillet this guy, I'm not getting any meat, so they throw it back. And then the ones that are too big or too tough, I don't want to keep that. It doesn't taste great, right? So they throw those back. And to be honest, the best tasting stripers, the best tasting ones, if you're gonna fillet, is probably that 22. Well, let's say from 18 to 22 inches. It's probably the best tasting stripers. The meat, you get enough meat, but the meat hasn't become tough yet. Once you break that 24-inch mark, the meat starts to become tough. It's a lot more gamey, feels like. And some people say, I like to eat the striper head, right? Okay, so if you like to eat the striper head, then you have to catch a bigger striper, like 28-inch plus. We'll get the head's getting pretty big. It's like probably that long, 28, and about that wide. So basically, like the size of my fists. That's about a 28, 30-inch striped bass. Yeah, Vu. We used to run $75 poles as well. They do just fine as long as you're able to accept the capabilities of your pole, so that if in the event that the stripers are hitting 150 yards out and your pole cannot make that cast, it is not because of you. It's because your pole can't make that cast, and you're okay with it. Then you're fine. It's perfectly fine. I'm okay with it too. Yep. Pesca 503 says, I think the same as you. Yep. See, I'm telling you guys, I'm not the only one who thinks like this. And see, that's the thing about it. Like, I live the striper world and I live the bass tournament world. You can't say these words in the bass tournament world. For some reason, if you do, it's like you're instantly Darth Vader for some reason. You're instantly a bad guy. And people frown upon it. Like harvesting a black bass, a smallmouth, largemouth, or spotted bass. It seems like you're just instantly kicked out of the group because you even mention it. And in the striper world, it's like, no, bro. No, that's not the way it is. You go ahead and harvest whatever you want. That's what I like about this group. At least this community of groups. California. Yep, got some guys from California. We got 18 guys on the group right now. David's like, I still got to get into the 30. My big is the 28. All right, so this is something we've been kind of juggling around for a little bit too, right? So we had an idea, right? It's kind of a bragging rights type of thing. So just let me know what you guys think, right? We're at one time, this is a couple years back, we were debating the idea of releasing stickers. So there's like, because even in our little group of guys, we had clubs, right? Like we had the 20-inch club, the 30-inch club, the 40-inch club, the 50-inch club, right? So we were debating if we wanted to do like stickers, just decals basically, of a striper. Right? It'll be something like this, right? You see that? Like that striper. We were actually looking at this exact striper too. Like that striper right there. And just dub it like 30 club, 40 club, 50 club, whatever it might be, 10-pound club, 20-pound club, 30-pound club. And when you get one, you could like basically tag us on Instagram or Facebook, and we'll have to like just send the sticker out to you, basically, so you can just show it off. So it's basically you can put it on the truck, put it on the back of your boat if you wanted to, or a kayak, or whatever you want. So we were debating that for a while, but we never did. We never really actually did take off with that. But yeah. Yes, Sugi. Oklahoma boys. I think that's kind of after we kind of started that stupid trend too, because I mean, I don't know. Based on my knowledge of it, we were kind of the first group of guys to really start throwing gear that costs over $500. And I'm sorry if I'm a bad influence, right? And you spend too much money on your gear, and your wife's mad at you, your girlfriend's mad at you, whatever. But I remember when we came down here, a lot of people were using catfish poles, and you guys know what I'm talking about. It's one of those. I forgot what that brand name was called, but you go to the bait shop, the Woody's bait shop, and they have them in the back of the shop. And you can get them in like 10, 12, 13, 14, 15. I think they even have a 16-foot pole, but it was, oh man, that pole was like, it was something. It was basically a giant bamboo stick. Is basically what it was. But it was designed for catfish, and it was like a one piece too. Like, and you see people strapping these 16-foot rods to the side of their cars so they could, and then they go down the highway with it. And I get here, I'm like, that's too much, bro. If I'm gonna do a rod like that, it's gonna be a surf rod. It'll be a 3-piece rod, and then just call it good, right? So at the time when we first moved down here, we were not chasing stripers so much yet. And there was a lot of guys doing that. And you can see that in Keystone Dam, all the other dams. You can see a lot of guys going after stripers. They're throwing top waters and stuff like that. But they're on these big rods, and they're on like $60, $70 reels that you can pretty much buy from like your traditional Bass Pro, or maybe Woody's even had a couple of those reels, right? So it wasn't like up to spec, I would say, up to the spec of today's anglers. So I just remember a couple of guys. I remember I was one of the first ones to buy one of those long neck reels. Like I bought the first, as far as I know, I was the first one to buy the Daiwa. It was I bought that reel from Japan too, to be honest. I can't remember the name of it was, but I think it was. I don't know. I can't remember. It was a bit. Anyway, it was like a long neck, right? And then I put on like a 9.5-foot ugly stick, and I was able to cast farther than like everybody else. Like I was on my 9.5-foot rod, I could touch the areas of all the 13-foot guys could throw too. I could do that with my 9.5-foot rod. Like I remember doing that. And then my brother, who's not here tonight, he was here Tuesday night. He just said, screw it. I want to get a big rod, and he bought like a 10.5, right? And then my other brother bought another 10.5, and then Hua came back, and he's just like, screw it. We're gonna buy. No, I bought him that Daiwa Bazia. Go back to the last video. You don't know what I'm talking about. We have all this gear in the last video, the last live, where we're talking about striper gear. And I bought him this like surf reel from Japan. And it was like a $400 reel, and he was just like, you know what, this $400 reel. And I bought it for his birthday. So in order for this $400 reel to be worth it, you have to pair it with a rod that is also in this price range. So he bought I think it was like $350 surf rod. It's a competition surf rod. So he paired it with that, and that's the first time I've seen long distance casting. And he was a built kid too, you know. So he can whip it pretty far. And after that, I just started like noticing. Like I started noticing that after every time after we went to Keystone, there was more and more and more high end setups popping up in and out. There was just more and more of it. And of course, this was like 5, 6 years ago, probably more than that. But and then we kind of left the striper world a little bit to pursue kind of the bass stuff. And then now when I go back to the dam, and everybody's got expensive stuff. Everybody's got expensive gear. You got like Saltigas, you got Stellas, you got CTS rods, like that one guy mentioned. CTS rod, for those that don't know what a CTS rod is, the CTS is actually a company. It's not a model of rod. Okay, so CTS custom rods. It's probably the best rod you can buy. Probably. It's super light. It whips pretty far, but it's like $800 to $1,000. I think it's what it was, or $700. And then it gets pretty pricey just to chase stripers at the dam. But there's moments in time, man. Like I said, when you have to have that stuff, and that's another thing that makes the striper fish really, really interesting too. Is they could be anywhere, but everybody knows where they should be at. Okay, everybody thinks they should be in the dam, and that's true. Like here, like today's February 3rd. A month from now, March 3rd, they should be at the dams. From March to April, they should be at the dams. They should be making their spawning runs. It's very predictable. They should be there. They're always there every year, and I guarantee you're gonna find at least five rod and reel setups that are over $500 any given day at Keystone. It's just the way it works right now, you know. And then I think we started the braid thing too. So the braid thing is just crazy, right? Everybody's on braid now. Before, when we first started doing the braid thing with the surf rods, I would probably say out of 20 people out there, you probably saw two other guys with braid. And I'm talking like small braid too, not the 50, 60 pound braid you usually get. We were the first guys to really throw the 20s, 30s, and that was about it. Because we wanted distance, you know, so we valued distance over breaking strength. And we did that a lot. We did that a lot. We did a lot of, but that was before we did all the loaded plugs or anything like that. So we did a lot of just top waters, slab spoons, uh, fluke and jig heads. And I never did the floater jig head thing, but my other brother did it for about 2 seasons. That was pretty good for him. And it was it was really eye opening how far you can actually push the envelope of distance casting too. So that was pretty crazy. So we kind of pushed that for a little bit, and then we went to. Well, I wouldn't say we left, but it wasn't like really interesting anymore. And so we went to pursue a little bit of bass stuff, just because that got interesting. Because tournament fishing is another entire different like striper addiction in itself. Okay, but we're not covering that tonight. Just know that we kind of left to pursue that, not really pursue, but just investigate that. But now we're kind of back, right? So. Uh, what we've learned in bass, we could definitely apply in stripers as well because of behavior patterns of fish. Okay, so a lot of people will say I can only catch fish during, like I said, March and April, and then I don't have any luck after that. Well, this is where the bass fishing knowledge comes in. If you think about a fish, it lives in the water. It has migratory habits. Okay, so if you're only catching them during March, April, that's because they're on the spawning run. once the spawning run is done and you have a lot of you stop having success basically, it is because they're no longer there. They're back downstream. The ones that didn't get caught are now bound. They're now back downstream. So you have to pursue them downstream. But a lot of people can't make that, 1+1 = 2 transition to say, you know what? They're done with spawning, so now they're back to their summer areas. Okay. So now you will chase them where summertime is for those fish. So that's also a cool thing to do. And because all the fish are kind of like the way they live, and this is bass behavior too, is they're schooling fish. So for the most part, if you're not on them, they're not there. They are not there. Okay. If you go to the dam and say it's the perfect day, the generator turns on time, and 30 minutes after the generator turns on, it should be fire. Like, it's usually always fire after 30 minutes of the generator should be turned on. If an hour goes by and you're not catching them, it simply means they're not there. Or there's not enough of them there. There might be like 20. But during the spawning runs, there should be hundreds in there. Okay? So if you're not catching them, that just basically means they're not there. And you got to keep moving around. Because like I said, stripers are very notorious big fish. They eat everything in their path, so they're not ever not hungry. Stripers, white bass, and hybrids, all three of those basically behave the same. They basically behave the same. They just bite bigger baits. The stripers bite bigger baits. Fishing fitness fun, yeah. See, that's the thing too. He's talking about, I guess he's referencing why we should harvest these fish, because they were put there to harvest, right? And that is the reason why there's such a thing called regulations. Okay, so regulations are there to keep a sustainable population to be harvested. Okay, they didn't regulate it so the schools of fish can just overtake a lake. Okay, so pay attention to your regulations, right? Every year the regulations tend to change. When I first got here to Oklahoma, I think the regulation was 20 stripers, and only 5 could be over 20 inches. So that meant there was a lot of stripers in the state. There was too many stripers in the state. And then about 7 years ago, they changed it. They said, look, you can have 5. Doesn't matter what size, you can have 5. Okay, I mean it's still not bad. I mean, think about, like, if you're on a school of stripers, right? If you catch 5 stripers that are all 30 inches, that's one heck of a day. That is one heck of a day. You should not even complain that you can't keep 20 stripers. Okay, but if you catch 5 stripers this size, okay, you could probably complain about that. That's definitely not enough. That's definitely not enough. 5 that's not enough. So whatever, right? But then there's Texoma in our state. Texoma, you can still have 10 stripers, but only 2 can be over 20, which I feel is a much better regulation. But then if you compare Texoma to Oklahoma, I feel like Texoma has 50% of the stripers. Yeah, I just feel that. That lake is just crazy. It's infested with stripers. The guides on that lake hit that, and there's got to be like 100 guides hitting that lake every day, fulfilling limits seems like every day, and the striper population is getting worse. It's getting out of control. So you guys will definitely see a striper video from us later on Texoma. Yep. So like I said, regulations are there to keep a sustainable harvest, fish. So if you catch them, it's a great tasting fish. I don't see why you would release them. I really don't see why you release them. Okay, so stripers, a good white bass, a good hybrid, a good walleye. I don't understand why you release these four species. Every time we catch them, we always harvest them, unless if we're not gonna eat them quickly. Okay, so So fish, if you throw them in the freezer, tend to get freezer burn, and then they don't taste very good anymore. So we tend to think, okay, am I going to eat these fish within the next 2 weeks? If we are, then we keep them. I don't see why not, right? I don't see it. I don't know why. Okay. Okay, so some people will say, even with a regulation of 5, the population is going to keep on going down, and you kiss that population goodbye. And to those guys, I say, well, you're just not fishing in the right area, obviously. Obviously, the DNR, the wildlife department, whatever you want to call them in your state, they're all labeled differently. They do research, and then they set these restrictions. Why should they do research, and then they let the public vote on it, and then they set this restriction? Okay, so if you're complaining, you need to go to that meeting and say, look, I am not catching any fish. I don't know why there's like the season's just not straight up closed. So the population come back. Okay, so you can argue that any way you want. But I'm just gonna leave it. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Okay. Yep. We're definitely meat hunters, man. I don't know why. Like, think about it. Like, okay, so if you're an outdoorsman, here's the other thing too. I think this is one of the key things that separates a really good fisherman from just an average fisherman. And then there's like everybody else, right? If you're an average fisherman, meaning you could go out, you could target a targeted species, whatever species that might be, and you're successful at it. Like a couple of times, you never leave the day skunked out. Pretty much, you always catch at least one, right? That's an average guy. But for the guys that are always catching limits, okay, always catching limits, I think there's one thing that separates those two guys. And one is what they were just talking about is you're a meat hunter. You need to be a meat hunter. Like you need to have that like primal like drive to catch fish. Like yeah, you gotta have it. I think that's one of the things that I learned in the world of tournament bass fishing too. Is I think half those guys they're missing this one little thing, that primal like kind of like hunter primal like caveman. Like I'm not leaving until I catch one. Like that from that angle, right? And a lot of people won't understand, but a lot of people will. And I think the striper guys definitely will understand what I'm talking about when I say that. Yeah. Fun fact from Fang Li: about 1.5 million fish harvest out of Texoma annually. 1.5 million, and then we're all talking. We're not talking like fingerlings, right? We're talking like 15 to 40-inch stripers, right? So even at 1.5 million stripers harvest, the report says it's trending up. The striper population is trending up. So even if you harvest 2 million stripers, that might not even like put a dent in the curve. It might still be going up too. And there's a lot of fishermen out there. There's a lot of fishermen. There's a lot of boat ramps. There's a lot of good areas you can fish on land, especially if the lake is down. There's like you can walk the banks. It's all sandy banks. The guides are everywhere. And every year I just see videos from the wildlife department showing off the top water blitzes in August and September, and they just say, yeah, this blitz happens every day from about 2 to 5, and it's like thousands of fish, and they just go at it, and there's boats everywhere, and everybody's catching limits, and the population just keeps going up. Okay, it's crazy. We're doing that too. We're going to do that Texoma trip this year. We have to. We got another guy who's possibly collaborating with us, flying in from Minnesota. So maybe. How about the hybrids? Hybrids are basically the same thing. So except the hybrids usually don't reproduce. So when people stock hybrids, it's really there. The hybrid is stocked for you to take. Okay, period. I don't know why people are even arguing about this. Okay, they say you should catch hybrids and release them. The all your tax money or license monies, that is, when you pay for your fishing license, or $20 or My state is only 28. Other states, it might be $75 for your annual. And they take a little bit of that and they put it into those programs where they can go and buy the baby hybrids, the little fingerlings. They throw it in your lake, and as they grow, they control the shad population, and so you can go and harvest them. Okay, that's the main reason why they do hybrids. Hybrids can reproduce. So, unlike the stripers that can reproduce and take over an entire ecosystem and destroy lakes, the bass fishermen think stripers, hybrids, and white bass are really bad for the lake because they destroy everything and they eat all the bass and stuff, and now we don't have any more bass. That's what the bass fishermen tend to think, right? But for a striper, especially for the hybrid guys, right? Go ahead, man. Catch them and keep them. I have no problem with that. Just don't keep limits. Then I have a problem. But if you're keeping your limits, I'm just like, man, go for it, dude. Go for it because they taste pretty good too, okay? Yep. Fishing finesse fun. Yeah. Stripers, hybrid stocks bring high money, and also people spend more money. They do. Okay, so in Oklahoma, I actually watched. It was a proposed idea. It was from the Grand Lake Authority. And for all the bass people, you might know Grand Lake very well for bass, right? But they're also trying to start up a hybrid program on Grand Lake. For the guys that don't know, Grand Lake is probably, in terms of fishing, probably the biggest destination in Oklahoma in terms of just general fishing. It's got great crappie, it's got great white bass, it's got tournament bass fishing on it 3 times a week. They're bringing big money into it, right? But Grand Lake is located in northeast Oklahoma, and then I think they want to duplicate a Texoma like fishery through hybrids, because Texoma arguably is the best freshwater striper fishery in the United States, in the world, because I don't think the rest of the world has stripers. So, arguably the best in the world, stripers. We don't have the average size is not as big as say Beaver Lake or Norfolk or the other lakes in Arkansas, right? Because Arkansas has them, they growing big out there. But in terms of numbers, right? All those like I would even say like 15 to 20-inch range, that range, Texoma all day. Like it's not even close. Okay, so they start. I guess the wildlife department starts looking at like, oh, how many ticket sales are sold because Lake Texoma, you need a special license basically to really fish there. If you fish around the lake, because the lake's divided in two. There's Texas and then there's Oklahoma. If you have the Oklahoma license, you can only fish on Oklahoma waters. So you can also go and buy a Texas license, or you can buy a Texoma license and it covers the entire lake. So the Texoma license, I think, is another $12. So based off of that sale, they can really say, okay, how many people are flying out of town to come fish this lake? I'm thinking 10,000. I'm thinking 10,000 sales, right? Oof. Just ate. Burping a lot. Mm-hmm. So Texoma's got the best population by far. The people that fish the dam in Texoma, I mean, they can attest to this too. Like it is good. It is good when it's spawning. It's good fishing. Probably one of the best areas in Oklahoma. Probably the best dam in Oklahoma in terms of numbers, because we even have guys that travel from Tulsa to Texoma to the dam to fish for stripers. It's not. I'm not joking. People actually do it. All right. What is your trophy striper lake in the U.S.? In the United States, freshwater stripers. I'm thinking in my general area. If you're talking lakes, Bull shoals. Everybody knows about it. It's in Arkansas. It's about a 3 hour drive for me to get to Bull Shoals. It's about a 3 hour drive to go south for me to get to Texoma. Bull Shoals does not have the numbers, so you might get there and might not catch a limit. But if you're there during the spawn, and if you know what you're doing, and if you know where to go, 30-pound striper is not. It's not unusual to catch one. 30-pound stripers. If you know what you're doing, you know where you're going, you got your buddies that have the inside scoop, 30-pound striper for you. Not just for you, but everybody else that went on that trip. 30-pound striper is not out of the question. Okay, 30-pounder is not out of the question. But like I said, it's like you gotta know people who knows people who knows people to get into that crowd. I'm sure Texoma is almost the same way too. I mean, there's so many stripers out there's gotta be 30-pounders. Like there's gotta be schools of 30s somewhere where they're not in your typical areas. Yep. Suki knows my sorrows. Yep. Back in the days, man, you live in the areas that have tons of stripers and you didn't even know how to catch them. Sad. Now you think about it, you're like, man, if I only knew. We lived in New England. Cape Cod was only an hour away. And in terms of ocean fishing, Cape Cod and Montauk, 1 and 2. It's not even arguable, buddy. 1 and 2. Cape Cod was only an hour away, and we didn't know what the heck we were doing. No, I went to Cape Cod. I fished Cape Cod, but I didn't go during those spawning runs. I always go there during the summertime. It's dead during the summertime. Yep, never going back to cut bait and live bait. Now, cut bait, I probably will never go, but live bait, there's a little piece of that in my heart still that I like live bait. Because if you're throwing live bait, right? If you're throwing live bait and your live bait's only this big, I'm not interested. Put it that way. Up in New England, when we were up there, there was a bait called or a herring, which is it looks like a skipjack. It basically is a skipjack, but they migrate the ocean in the ocean water and they come up to spawn. And the stripers chase them and all this other stuff. But we were doing like 14-inch herring. I mean, it was big. It was big, and you take a big old hook and you just hook them on the back. And when you swing this thing out, it doesn't even go that far. Maybe 20, 30 yards at max. And then you just hold the rod. And it literally feels like white bass is biting your rod because you just hold your surf rod. And this bait's running around, and it's like it's pumping your rod, it's pumping it, and all of a sudden that's striper. It's super addictive, especially when you do it at night too. At night, it's even more addictive because you can't see anything. Everything is by feel at that moment. Everything is by feel. So what we did was this is one little town. It's called Watertown, right? It's literally in the middle of town. We got like a 4-lane like street coming above, and we're fishing on this bridge, right? We parked in like a city park and walked over. It's a little river that flows up, and it's like there's a college maybe like a quarter mile down the road. There's like taxi places behind you, and it's literally downtown. You're looking at downtown, right? There's like trolleys running around, buses. It's a city, right? And we get there and we fish this little area, and it was pretty crazy. You out with a little dip net, you just kind of dip net, get your live bait, put it in like this floating basket, and you're in the water about waist high. And you just hook on, chuck it out. And it wasn't even that dark. It was basically imagine downtown of your hometown. There's a lot of lights, but we're just underneath the bridge, so it's kind of dark. Where we were like hobos. Actually, we were fishing. Hobos were asking if we can give them fish. I've given a couple away. I think I've given away 2. Yeah, hobo fishing. Crazy story. And we would catch some of the biggest fish too at night. During the day, it seemed like it was dead. It just seemed like it was dead. But during the night, whoo, stripers came alive. And that's the thing I want to talk about too. It's a great eating fish, but it's also a great fish to catch at all hours of the day. Uh, you can't always say that about all the other species. All the other species, like for example, like bass, crappie, and those other fishes, they seem to shut off a bit. Like once the uh, sun goes down, the bite really shuts off. Like it really does. You just get a couple big ones to bite, and that's about it. Now stripers are different. I feel like the smaller stripers are very active in the daytime, where the big ones are kind of like, the bait fish can see me too well. I'm not gonna move around a lot. I will wait for my turn, right? So when night hits, the big ones become active. Okay, so there's a big flip of the switches. There's two switches being flipped, right? The big ones typically hit better at night. They typically do, especially if you got clear water. So keep an eye out for that. That's something that in all of our hearts, all of our striper hearts around the team here, we prefer, if we can, to do striper fishing at night. It's so hard for us to record that stuff. We have probably 3 or 4 trips striper fishing at night where when we play the videos back and it's just pitch black. There's nothing there. And you hear the drag screaming, you hear us like manhandling the fish, but you don't see anything. The quality's so bad. So if we ever release these videos, you might as well just close your eyes and just listen, okay? Because that's how that is. But striper fishing at night has its own thing. Like it's really really addictive. You don't have to cast really far. A lot of the bites happen within 20 yards of the bank, and when they hit it and they take off, it's a for sure it's a striper. Yep. 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 Yeah. So back to the hybrids and stripers and stuff. It's big money. It's big ticket money. So the guys that don't understand is like, okay, you figure like the wildlife department puts in stripers hybrids. They might spend say $5,000 to stock a lake. Say $5,000 to stock a lake, but they're bound to make $50,000 back, 10 times as much. So let me explain how they're gonna make that money back, right? So you have people flying in from out of town, and there's all tax money too. Economies boom based off of fish. There's literally Texoma. If there's no stripers in there, I don't think that lake would be as good as it is, because there's moments in time when you go to Texoma and all you see at the gas pumps are guide boats lined up, guide boat after guide boat after guide boat, trying to get gas, trying to get ice, trying to buy tackle, trying to, so the world evolves around these fish. So if you manage it right, these fish will make your city money. As simple as that. And finesse fishing fun. He's right. He know what he talking about. Yeah. Trevor Fillmore, I feel you, bro. I feel you. When you hit the moments just right, those are those dream trips. We've had many of those. Some of them were before we started recording for YouTube. And he says, I'm not gonna say the river just because I don't want everybody to know. So, well, actually, it's already in the comments, so they can probably read it. But the Miramichi River caught over 400 fish in one day, and to the people that never witnessed that, right? They'll say you're crazy. It's impossible. But for me, I say that's a damn good day. I've had that day before. Ain't no lie. I've had them days before. So if you go back to one of our original channels, it's called 24/7 Outdoor Addiction, right? Well, just type in Sooner Lake, right? There's a video in there that was about 40 minutes long that I edited, and that video easily could have been 5 hours long. Okay, we had to crop so much stuff out to keep it just exciting, just fish catch up, fish catch. But that was one of those days where you got there and it's a hot water discharge lake, so the fish must have thought it was a spawn. So I kid you not, you see stripers on the bank. It was like fishing in a tank. It literally was like fishing in a tank. Every cast you threw out there, it felt like something bit it, but you wasn't sure because you've never felt this before, so you wasn't sure. You keep reeling it, and something taps it again, and you're not sure if you should set the hook or if it's a rock. And you start thinking to yourself, "Wait, I just cast into like 30 feet of water. That has to be a fish, right? That has to be a fish, right?" So you start thinking, okay, so then you're like, all right, I'm gonna set on everything that taps it. So then you start setting the hook and you start losing baits, right? We were throwing flukes, right? And then before you know it, you hook up to a couple, and then you're like, all right, so that's how they want it. Then you start leaning on a bunch of them, and before you know it, I mean the limit in that area is only 5, right? So what we did was we caught the first 4 and we put them on stringers, right? Like no joke, your first 4 they go on the stringer, and then we're just gonna fish for fun, catch and release until we're ready to go home, and then I'm just gonna be like, 5 minutes, guys, it's time to go. All right, in 5 minutes, catch another one, put it on stream, let's go. It's done, right? So that's basically what the video was. It was freaking nuts. We left them biting. A bunch of people came through, and they were catching them too. So it was one of them days, and that day never happened again. And it wasn't because we released that video. People say we released that video, that spot died off, but the reality is that spot was overpopulated, okay? Because from what I can tell, Cedar Lake never changed their regulations on the hybrids and the stripers. They just imposed another minimum that the stripers had to be 20 inches, and that was it. The hybrids, a lot of stuff, it was still, Cedar Lake. Yep. Yeah. Was my arm tired? Yeah. I had to take a break. When you're catching so much fish that you have to switch. Like, this is how I fish, right? Cast, reel. I'm a right hand guy, but I reel my left. Cast, you reel, and then sometimes you get so tired you cast and you just hold with your left, and you're just like, if they thump it, then I'll set the hook and I'll pass it back to my right. Like that happened that day. It was ridiculous. It's one of them days, So everybody needs to feel one of those moments because those moments only happen once. I would say once every year. Once every year, that trip happens once every year. It's like not just striper. I'm talking like an unbelievable trip will happen once every year. Yeah. Trevor was like, I had to run down with A535 the next morning before I went fishing again. Yeah. We've had days where we've caught so much fish, our backs hurt. You have to lean on them so hard. Yeah. I'm telling you. I'm not even lying, dude. Back can hurt. All right, so yeah, so those are the great days. There's a lot of chances for you to get a great day like that. And in the world of bass fishing, that's not the case. Those guys were always chasing the best 5 fish. So the best 5 fish can be in 5 different locations on the lake. But in striper fishing, it's you found the mega school, who cares? Just go at it. Have fun. So striper fishing has its own thing. The battle, that's the other thing. And there's already a couple of guys talking about it. The striper has the best fight. Like out of a freshwater fish. There's only really one fish that could probably rival the striper, and that would be the pike, the northern pike. Because all these other fish, they don't hit your bait, run off with it. a lot of the bigger fish, like the sturgeons and the salmons, things like that. Oh, salmon! I'll play say like sturgeons, catfish, and stuff like that. They don't hit your fish. Like you have to go and like some people call it chunking, where you go out with live bait or something, you throw it out, you wait. That it's really boring fishing to me. I don't like to do that. So I put catfish in that category. I put sturgeon in the category. I put gar in that category. And I don't like those. I'm talking like sport fish. Okay, sport fish. Uh, Probably the pike is the only one that could probably challenge the striper on this one. The fight. The fight is okay. So let's just imagine this is night. Throw your big bait out there. Just start slow winding, right? And they hit it. And when a big one hits you, the difference between a small one and a big one, say like a striper that's under 30 inches. This is typically how they're going to hit. You're reeling, you're reeling, you're reeling. All of a sudden, you just go whack, and he just takes off, and you just start peeling drag. That's like a sub. That's a sub 30. A 30 plus will do this. You're reeling it, you're reeling it, you're reeling it, whack, and it doesn't even move. And you set hard, and it doesn't even move. And you're just like, I got you. And you start cranking on him, like two cranks in, and that's when he notices, oh, something is wrong. And then he takes off, and it'll peel out maybe 30 yards of line sometimes. And crazy head shakes. You pull them in close, they'll go again. Pull them in again, they'll go again. And and mind you, this is all at night too, so it's all pitch black sometimes. It's a real good fight. The guys that have never caught them, you really don't know what they're missing out on. Okay. Have you ever been smelt fishing? No, I've never been smelt fishing. I heard about it. I heard it's pretty fun, but I've never done it. Route 666, Chesapeake Bay and Tidal River's best striper fisheries in the country. I mean, don't get me wrong, the numbers are there, but I feel like if you're talking saltwater, then a lot of fish, but they're harder to catch because you have to catch them for the most part. Like to fully take advantage of those areas, you have to be on a boat. I feel like you have to be on a boat, and I'm talking like out on the boat on the flats. That's all the videos I see of the stripers, and they're awesome videos. Okay, but for the most part, I don't know what it is. Like striper fishermen, they tend to be bank beaters. They tend to be. So from a perspective of those striper fishers, the average striper fisherman, we like to stay on the bank. If you're on the bank, it's hard to beat Montauk and it's hard to beat Cape Cod. The Cape Cod Canal, I kid you not. Like I went there one year, this was like 4 years ago. I went there, and this canal I think is like 5 miles long and maybe 100 yards wide. Right? It's not a small canal; it's big. And when the striper come through the canal, the entire canal erupts. And I'm not exaggerating that. I wish I had more video of this, but we didn't have a long telephoto lens to zoom in on this. So I have GoPro footage, but you can barely see the top one action. But the entire dam, the entire not dam, but the entire canal erupts, and it's the most unusual thing you've ever seen in nature. Okay, because usually a lot of people show you the video footage of like a little area, like a pocket, a cove, a flat, and there might be like 100 stripers gorging, and you're like, that's a big school. But I have seen the schools that come in through the Cape Cod Canal chasing mackerel that are like literally that size, like 16-inch mackerel. And all you see is grenades going off in the water. And this is all top water action too. So the mouths of these rivers, grenades going off, like for, I don't even know, 300 yards long. Yeah, that's crazy. I'm not exaggerating that too. I'm telling you like it is. I'm telling you like it is. And the guys who've been there, who've seen it, they'll tell you, he's not exaggerating. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. William Lint, almost missed you. No, you didn't miss me. Well, maybe almost. I started 7:15, 7:30, and we're trying to keep it down to about an hour and a half. So it is currently 8:20. So we got another 30 minutes. So welcome aboard, by the way. Have you ever fished for bass in South Carolina, North Carolina? We haven't. A lot of good things about it. We've never been there. Now, I'll let you guys in on a secret, kind of like a future type thing is if this channel grows really big, right? If it grows really big to the point where I know there's three of us, but if it grows to the point where I could quit my job and do this full time and it could help support a couple of trips, what we got planned is like basically we're gonna, since this channel is growing with stripers, we're trying to catch a striper in every state that has stripers. So what does that mean, right? We're gonna, in the perfect world, we would follow the striper migration. Okay, so basically that's an entire like 6 months following the migration. You might start in South Carolina, go to North Carolina, go to Chesapeake Bay, and from there on out, all the way through, all the way to like Maine, right? All the way to Maine. That would be the ideal thing to do. Like that would be the perfect like 2025 gift if we're fortunate enough. But yeah, if the channel grows, if the channel doesn't grow, then we'll definitely do one, but we won't follow the migration. And also, there's also the freshwater stripers. So don't forget about California, the California Delta, Sacramento area. They have them there too. Kind of rare. They're more rare than on the East Coast. There's also in the Louisiana, Texas area. There's supposedly these stocked stripers down there, but it's like a unicorn. Everybody knows about it, but no one's ever been able to catch one. Okay, so stripers are pretty rare. They just don't breed very well in hot, warm water, and that's the reason why the Northeast is so good because that water is a lot colder. It's a lot colder. What do you think of spider wire stealth braid? Spider wire braid, I've never used it. I know my brother used it one time. I don't know if it's a new stealth braid or just a standard spider wire at the time, but it's been maybe 10 years since we used spider wire. Um, it's okay. I guess it has to be okay if it's still being sold. But we're all Power Pro guys. All Power Pro. Either the Power Pro or it's Suffix 832. I like that Suffix a lot because it's very, very good. Knot strength, everything else is really, really good. It's just that the line diameter is pretty big, so you can't make a long throw. But it's super silent when you reel through the guides. It doesn't give you that like whining sound. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so that's a pretty good question. Since we're talking about that tonight, striper and scent, right? So this comes from my bass fishing side. Okay, so when it comes to scent, I am not a big believer in it. Okay, let me explain. Right, in the world of bass fishing, when you're fishing for money because you're actually putting money in the pot, you want the best chance to catch a fish. Well, I'll tell you what, I want a state championship and all this other cool stuff, angle of the year stuff, rank super high ranking. Scent never played a role. It never did. Period. Now, there is one moment, if there is to be a moment, there's one moment in time where scent will play. Scent only plays, in my opinion, if the fish gets a chance to look at your bait for a long time. Like, for example, if you're throwing this, everybody know this is? It's a Huddleston. It's expensive, like $30 bait. But this thing it smells like oil, right? But if you're throwing this and you're slow winding it, because this bait is designed to swim real slow, and the fish can come and look at it and basically bump it, make sure it's real. That's when you want scent, because you need something that'll convince him to just at least like nip it. Okay, so that's my opinion on scent. But when it comes to stripers, nah, I'm not a scent guy. It don't matter how dirty, how clear. If he's not gonna bite it, then I don't care about scent very much. Now, see where live bait comes in. The live bait has its own scent, and don't worry about dipping it in garlic or like that. Yeah, that's the thing too, Trevor. I'm still trying to catch a striper on the fly rod. A fly rod up there. I get a 9 weight and a 5 weight. I've caught mini white bass before, but I haven't caught like a true striper. Try to do that this year. Stripers on the fly, because I know that the fly rod, I fish a lot of like bluegills, bass, and stuff like that, right, on the fly rod. And when you hook a fish on a fly rod, it feels like the world's gonna explode. That's like the best description I could say, because you're real. For the guys that don't fly fish, the reel, it's like the worst reel of all time, because it doesn't have any like gear ratios. So for every turn of the reel, whatever that is, it's 12 inches. Where all of our other reels, every turn is like 35 inches, right? So this reel is going super slow. There's line everywhere, and then this fish is taking off. So the line is like you're holding the line with your finger, and while this was reeling the other one, and then as he's taking off, you got to release a little bit of pressure just so the line can strip through your fingers, and you're thinking like it's gonna cut your hands, but it doesn't, because it's so big and the line's wet and all this other stuff. So it's controlled chaos for about, I would say, about 5 seconds, right? And it's not even a striper. It's just like a trout. Now, I can only imagine how a striper would feel. Like as soon as you hook them, it's just like shit. I hope nothing happens. I hope nothing breaks. uh, yeah. So, yeah. Yep. Yeah, so Savage Gear Eel and Savage Eels work best for spinning rod gear colors last week. Hot pink and lime green. Yeah, see, that's the weird thing about the stripers too, is that's why I learned at the Cape Cod Canal too, that is they throw hot pink. Hot pink supposedly mimics squid. Yeah, squid at night. So I don't know. Why don't you just throw a squid more? I don't know. But if you guys like spin baits, look into Kitech. It's a company called Kitech, and they make the world's best swim baits. Pretty much, yeah. Affordable swim baits that have squid juice scent in them already. If you're a scent guy, I don't know why the striper crowd is not talking about this. I have a feeling there are people who are killing it, but they're just keeping it a hush hush. Okay, it's called Kitech Impact Fat, and they make it in all sizes. It's like a 6 inch, and then there's like a 7 inch, and there's like a 9 inch, right? Which is pretty dang perfect. Reference the other video. I showed it in the other video too. The Kitech Swinging Impact Fat, and they have all colors, like all the imaginable colors you can think of. They have. They got straight black. They got pure white. They got something that looks like a mackerel. They got something that looks like a shad. They got something that looks like a gizzard shad, Tennessee shad, Arkansas shad. They got bluegill colors. They got these weird blue and yellow colors. They got reds. They got shades of reds. They got oranges. They got. I don't know if I can remember they have pink or not, but that probably doesn't. That probably doesn't even matter. I mean, they swim really good. Like if you compare The Kitech, the Savage Gear Eels, the Savage Eels, it's no comparison. Like take the Savage Eel head, put the Kitech on it, super glue it, and just chuck it out. It'll. I have a feeling it'll work. It'll work 10 to 1, especially at night. It just swims so much better. Because in the bass fishing game, that's what we throw. We throw Kitechs for bass, and that Kitech lure outfishes every other swim bait lure. When that lure hit the scene, it changed the industry. It literally changed the industry. Because before that, everybody was throwing a swim bait body that looked like the Savage Eel body, round and little boot tail in the back. Everybody was throwing something like that. And then Kitech came out, which basically is still the same idea, but a bunch of ribs on it, and the ribs causes the body to like aggressively. Well, put it this way: the swim baits of before, all you get is a little bit of rolling action, and the little tail just kind of does this. Little. The Kitech came on the scene. That Kitech tail was like. If you're not throwing Kitechs, you're probably not going to win in the bass game. So all these big companies that were throwing the traditional baits basically discarded that stuff and went to a Kitech copycat. Okay, but Kitech is a company out of Japan. What do you know? Japan again. Yep. Yeah. So let's talk about something that the stripers can offer that the other fish really don't. If you compare a schooling blitz, so that's probably my best time. Like if you're just thinking fun for the general public or fun for your friend who is not a hardcore fisherman, fishing the blitz is probably the funnest thing to do. And these species of fish provide it every year from end of July to November. It's a topwater bite. And a lot of times it's by the hundreds too. And they come up schooling on these shad, and you physically can see them. You can walk towards them or take a boat, go towards them, and cast a lure in there. And they hit it. And they hit it really aggressive too. And then you don't have to be good to catch them. Or if you're really good, you catch a bunch of them. But yeah, so there's a lot of fun that comes when that happens. There's a lot of fun. Lots of fun. And on top of that, it's very visual, right? So you see this boil happen, you throw a top on it, it's running, and it gets smoked. And I think that's one of those things that's a very addictive thing. Hence the title of this live stream is Striper Fish is very addictive. This is very addictive because other species of fish don't do that as well. Like for a school of bass to do that, there might be 10 bass in school. They might come schooling, but the schooling action only lasts, 5, 10, 20 seconds, and they go away. And they go back down, right? But stripers, I've seen it where they come up and they just blitz for hours. I've actually seen it. One that lasted an hour and a half. And it was a mix between white bass and hybrids. And I was throwing like a 5.5-inch bait, and white bass was hitting my 5.5-inch bait. So I figured I would throw it out there. Don't even let it sink. I would throw it out there, and I would reel it as fast as I can. The faster I reeled it, the bigger the fish I catch. Because I was reeling so fast that the big white bass would just come up and nip the tail, but they'll miss the hook. But every time a hybrid hits it, he'll engulf the entire thing, and I'll hook him. Okay, so we did that for an hour and a half. Caught a limit in like 5 casts. Yeah, like 4 casts, because it was on a lake where you can only have 2 over 20. So 4 casts in, caught a limit, and then it was catch and release. Freaking crazy. Yeah, the Kitech. So see, that's the thing about the Kitech. So MJ Sean told my buddy fishing, took my buddy fishing, gave him a Kitech. I said, we'll outfish everyone here 5 to 1. Next, he asked, where could you buy some? Yeah, exactly. That's what happens with the Kitex. The Kitex are that good. The only thing left about a Kitex is if you're willing to pay the price or not. Okay, Kitex are compared to like the other lures that are available. It is going to be more expensive. It is no doubt about it. They charge for performance. Okay, so they perform better, but they don't last as long either. Okay, so keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. But there are moments in time where the Kitech is the only thing that can get bit. Like I said, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the action because the tail, the swing of the tail is so aggressive. And anybody who throws Alabama rigs will tell you Kitech all day. If you're not throwing Kitex, especially wintertime, if you're not throwing Kitex, you're not gonna get bit. 5-1, like our guy here said. 5-1. So put it this way: the other baits, say from the Strike King, typically go for probably $3.99, $4.99, kind of that price range is kind of what they're at. Kitex start at $5.99, and it's pretty expensive. It could go up. It might be $8.99, depending on where you buy them from. But there's a bunch. Tackle Warehouse has a bunch of them. Tackle Warehouse is probably the number one online store that has every single color you could imagine, and they do a really good really good photo system, so you can actually pick which one you want. eBay has them, Amazon has them, but they tend to carry more of the popular ones, popular colors. Oh. Yep, the drug is a tug, man. It's pretty crazy because if you look at my wall, shit. God damn, I spent too much money already. Too much money. I ain't gonna lie. Too much money. If you're a fisherman and you're really dedicated to it, you won't have money for drugs. Put it that way. The hybrid pound for pound. Yeah, pound for pound, the hybrid striper. Best freshwater fighting fish, period. I think everyone who has fished multiple species will attest to that. I don't, because I say it is too. Because if you figure like if you catch a 24-inch hybrid, it'll pull as strong as a 30-inch hybrid, a 30-inch striper. And since they're hybrids, I think they got like the crazy mindset too, like that do or die mentality. I'm just gonna fight and fight and fight and fight until I got nothing left, and then I might cut it. Yeah, David still uses the striking reach tails. They're not bad. They're not bad. But like I said, give the Kitex a try. Kitex are. I don't have a pack. But Kitex are that next level. But don't get me wrong. See, this is where the groups tend to separate a little bit. Is how much are you willing to pay? You know, if you're okay with what you're currently at, where you're currently at, then by all means stay where you're at. Don't spend more money just to catch another fish, because I don't want people spending more money just to catch another fish. But there are situations, okay, if you're in a high pressure situation, like say if you're fishing in an area where, I mean, everybody, say every single person there is throwing cheap baits or cheaper baits, and the fish knows what's going on because they've been conditioned to that bait, right? You need to come in and throw something different, then you need to throw the Kitech. Or you need to go find another bait that behaves completely different. Just think of it as actions, right? Because I said most of the baits have a real tight wiggle, right? Or a rolling kind of action, where the Kitech's got like a real wide tail wag, right? So just go through something different if you don't want to throw the Kitech. But like I said, if I need a bite, my confidence is the Kitech brand. If I'm just out fun fishing, then I don't have to throw Kitechs. But if you're on a mission, say we get these missions every once in a while where we got people from out of town that come to visit, and we're gonna throw a big old party, right? And everybody wants to eat fish. If it's one of those situations, then I'm like, all right, bring out the high tanks. We gotta catch like 100 white bass, whatever it is, Bring out the kite tanks. Yeah. Yeah. Hooked Up said, Z-Man. Z-Man, I'm still iffy on the Z-Mans just because I feel like their action is still not as good compared to the kite tanks. The Z-Man compared to the other swim baits, go for the Z-Mans. Because the Z-Mans, like you said, last forever. For the guys that don't know, the Z-Man brand they make everything out of Elastec, which is a plastic that's super stretchy, right? That you can't rip it. You can't rip it. And one lure might last you 50 fish, right? It might last 50 fish. And it's a really good thing, okay? It's a really good thing. The only downside is if you let it touch anything, it basically melts whatever it touches. Yeah. So don't keep all your other plastics away from it. Keep it away from direct sunlight because sunlight will actually melt it. So it's a lot of these weird things that do happen with the Z-Mans. But I've saved hundreds on the chatterbait trailers when I've swapped back to the Z-Man Razor chats. Okay, saving hundreds. Okay, so if that's okay with you, go to the Z-Mans. Yep. Yeah. See, that's the thing too. Like those schooling fish, they come and they're gone. Like if you get the reports that they're there, you need to be there that day. Same with us too. When we do the dam fishing, is if you know that the fish are there that day, or if you, once again, you gotta get yourself a circle of friends, right? If your circle of friends says he went out and he limited in an hour, right? You need to go that day or the day after that, because third, fourth day out, they've moved. They're not there no more. Okay, or they've been fished out. If you're at the dam and the news gets out real quick, 20 people show up and they all catch limits. That's 100. That's 100 to 200 fish, right? It's gone. So you have to be there on that day, or you could actually just wait till next week because another school might show up next week. David Chang, ribbed. It's the Kitech I'm talking about it's called the Impact Fat. Impact Fat swim bait. Did you get in contact with Merino Lures yet? No, I didn't. That's the other thing too. We're not really looking at lure sponsors or anything like that this year just yet. We might in the near future, but we're not sure about that just yet. So we're kind of reaching out to some people, but it's got to be like a something. Like we're not into trying lures for free reviews, that type of stuff just yet. And we've been contacted by a lot of people. Okay, the other good thing about the species of fish that makes it really addictive is it's really easy to catch, like especially during the spawning runs. And if you're fortunate enough to have a boat or public access to a stream or a dam or anything like that, it's really easy. They're really actually easy to catch. You go out there, you stand next to the bank, you cast anything into the water. Within those 2 weeks of crazy spawning, everybody gets bit. Everybody. Doesn't matter what you throw. You can throw a fluke, you can throw a Cordell gay blade, you can throw a crankbait, you can throw a spinnerbait, you can throw a big swim bait, you can throw a topwater. Well, maybe not topwater, they're not that aggressive yet. But just about everything else that you throw in the water, it drifts by them, you're going to get bit. And that's one of the main reasons why I like to take people who've never fished before. I don't want to take them out during the summer. It's so hot. They just complain. They want to go home. But in the springtime, it's nice. It's like 75, 85. Take them to those rivers. There's hundreds of fish down there. They throw anything out, they're going to get bit. They become addicted. They become one of us. and we all live happily ever after. uh, and on top of that, okay, so we mentioned like $1,000 setups, but really you don't need $1,000 setups to get started in the striper fishing game. Somebody mentioned my $75 setup. Yeah, you could start with that. You could start with that. As long as you know what you're doing, you set the drags properly, use the proper line, know what that rod and reel is kind of capable of. And if you don't know, you catch a big striper, he'll definitely mess up your gear, and then you'll go buy something a little bit better next year. That's usually how it works. So the bigger stripers, they will mess up your gear, and there's no reason, man. There's no excuse there. Basically, a big striper, if you fish stripers enough, and if you horse them in, you start horsing them in, your gear has to be pretty beefy. If it's not beefy, it might not last a season. Sorry, but that's just the reality of it. Okay, so that's when you're like, oh man, I spent say $100 on my rod and reel setup, but my reel gave up because it was only a $60 reel. So now you're gonna look for a reel that's in the $100 to $150 range. That's how it starts. And also, I like the community. The striper community is pretty good. For the most part, like when you go fishing for stripers, you show up to a spot. People are not as hostile as the bass community. The bass community, everybody's friendly with you when you're on the boat ramp, but as soon as you launch the boat, everybody's like, "You better stay away from all my spots," and you don't even know where their spots are at. So you start going to certain locations, and they show up. They're like, "That's my spot. You get the heck out of here." But it feels like the striper guys, they're all right. Everybody kind of knows, this is the only spot everybody can fish in. So if I'm already there, if I'm the first guy there, then respect my spot. Don't be coming in from my spot. And I feel like there is, at least as far as the community in terms of bait shops and things like that, the bait shops are more likely to give you the juice compared to the bass shops. Bass shops, everybody's tight-knit, They'll tell you like what kind of lure, but they won't tell you where. They might tell you what depth, but they won't tell you what kind of lure. Or they might just be like, go find your own dang spot. But it feels like the striper guys they're a lot more open. They're a lot more open to sharing some information with just the general public. More open to that. But that's very much an hour and a half, guys. Let me know if you guys are wanting more questions answered or anything like that, because we are done for the night and open-ended questions now. So let me know what you got. It doesn't have to be striper related, or it could be striper related. I prefer it if it was striper related, but anything goes from here now for another say 10 minutes or so until everybody has got their fill and we close up shop. David, what kind of gear are you talking about? Because I still got I believe two of these hats. Still got two of these hats. Those are I think they're $35 a piece. If you want it shipped, or $30 if you want to meet me somewhere. Yeah, so we're definitely doing more kind of a looking out for a bait drop. I know a lot of guys have been asking for the umbrella rig or clear rig. 47 and 47 hybrid killer and I've been working on some today, so expect a drop within the next week. We're building I think 30 of them, so pay attention to this channel and pay attention to our Facebook, pay attention to our Instagram, and when we drop them, it's first come first serve. There is no holding it for anybody, so like I said, it's the umbrella rig or clear rig. I know Mark wanted one, so Mark's already on the list. I know we owe him one. He's been bugging us about it. But yeah, we'll drop another set in like I said, next week. Okay, we got a lot of good things planned for the channel. We're definitely re-rigging the Little John boat. We're re-rigging the big boat for stripers. For stripers this year. So this year we're chasing stripers. We want to do a lot of good stuff that we've always wanted to do. We've never done. We're attempted but never accomplished. So there's a lot of that going on. A lot of the like throwing these big baits for stripers. That's something that we have to do. There's a bunch of rivers around here that we need to explore. Um, whether that's on the little boat or whether that's on the big boat, we need to do those. We got a lot of stuff planned. I don't know if that'll happen, but like you know how life works, you have a lot of plans. You just hopefully you just accomplish 50% of them. That's what we're aiming for. We're doing some collabs with other YouTubers this year. I might be flying out to Minnesota this year to chase some walleyes, I guess. More hunting channels or more hunting content on the way. My dad's getting a little older. He loves squirrel hunting and the whole squirrel hunting. Uh, he's not much of a deer hunter. I'm trying to get into that, but he doesn't mind doing hog hunting, stuff like that. So more of that content. Maybe some camping videos, more truck stuff for sure. Striper stuff for sure. I mean, like I said, if you guys have been on live with us for the last couple weeks, I keep ranting about missing the spoon bite. I missed the spoon bite too many times. I'm always either not even available or I'm in a different state or I'm chasing, tournament bass. But this year is different. This year, you guys I guarantee you're going to have like 3 crazy trips on the Magnum spoon. That's what I love doing with the stripers. I love the Magnum spoon thing. And we're traveling out of state this year. That's the other thing. We're traveling out of state. We're definitely gonna. What I want to do is we're going to go to Keystone, try to figure those stripers out because that's basically the closest lake to us. We're going to Lower Illinois because I still want to catch a trout and throw it out and catch a giant striper. Need to check that off the list. Need to go to Bull Shoals, Beaver Lake, Table Rock, one of those lakes, catch some stripers up there. Gotta go to Texoma, catch some stripers over there. Gotta go to the Canadian River, which is the hush hush kind of river. Gotta catch some stripers over there. And that's what I can disclose. At least that's what I got planned. There's a bunch of other stuff that we want to do. Don't know if we will. Depending on the funding. I mean, there's a bunch of bass fishing stuff that I want to do still, So we've been in the world of bass fishing for about 5 years now, and there's a certain amount of lakes that we really like to fish that could probably make us a pretty good check if we win. So when the tournament comes to that lake, we should go. And that's going to happen 3 times. So you're going to see at least 3 bass events on kayaks, and we might even fish a couple of, bass tournaments out of the big boat. But as of right now, the big boat versus the small boat. The guys have been on the channel for a while. You guys know we have a little 14-foot John boat, right? You haven't seen it much this year, unless if you watched a couple videos ago where I took the little John boat for a high-speed run because I don't know why we don't have that video. A lot of people want to watch that stuff, so we did the little John boat. It's a 14-foot John boat, 9.9 horsepower Mercury on the back, and that thing traps 21 miles per hour, which is, I guess it's fast for some people, but for me, it's okay. But, you got to re-rig the John boat for shallow water fishing. We're trying to make the outboard basically turn it into a surface drive. So for the people that know what that is, I think it'll be an interesting build. We're building a DIY jack plate. For the guys that want to know, a DIY mechanical, it's an adjustable on-the-fly jack plate that'll cost under $200. Okay, so definitely doing that so we can jack this motor way up high so we can run up all these small rivers, right, where the big boat can't go. And then on top of that, the big boat is now going to do all the major like open water fishing. With the big boat, we're thinking about getting a forward-facing sonar. It's a hard thinking, We don't have the budget for it, but if we win a couple tournaments, we will then have budget. So forward-facing sonar, your pan optics, your live target, active target, that type of stuff. I'm applying for a job at Lowrance, so if we get into that company, we'll have a bunch of Lowrance products. So I don't know. There's a lot of little things that's coming up that may or may not happen. The boat is pretty good. I still feel like we need to put more stuff in the big boat. The big boat doesn't fish as good as it needs to fish just yet. Yeah. When are you coming out to California? I have no plans to come to California. Sorry. California, if coming to visit relatives, I might have plans, but to come and just fish, it's not on the 2022 calendar. Uh, that would have to be something for the next couple of years. I know the crazy thing is I have some cousins out there still that they are fishing. They're catching stripers in like the aqueducts. That is a pretty crazy thing to do too. And some of those guys are catching some mondos, like crazy, crazy things. Like, how are you gonna? I didn't never knew that stripers live in aqueduct. So we'll look into that later. Uh, let's see. Oh yeah, the Hoover Dam. That's is that Lake Mead or is that what lake is that? Because I heard it was down like 60, 70 feet or something. But yeah, that's another. See, that's the thing. If this channel really takes off, I want to catch. I want to go to every lake that has a striper and catch a striper in it. That's the crazy idea. Okay, but then we need a lot of views, a lot of everything. So the thumbs ups, the subscribers, watching this video will help all that. Because the more people watch, the more I can go to these bait companies and say, look, this is what I want to do. I need funding, and you will sell more baits, and I will go out, have fun, record all these baits being used. You will make more money. I will make more money. Everybody gets entertainment. Everybody learns more about baits. Everybody's happy. It's actually that simple. But step number one is we need to get like 100,000 subscribers. Yeah, fishing at night is like I said, it's probably the best way to catch stripers. Just watch out for them snakes if you're here in Oklahoma. That's the only downside. Watch out for snakes. And in California, there's too many stories of going out and almost stepping on rattlesnakes out in California. Yeah, I think I covered everything I wanted to cover tonight. Yeah, so that's the main reason why stripers are so addicted, man. There's so many good things going for it, right? So if you go down my list again, it's a beautiful fish. When you catch a striper, it looks very different from a bass. It looks very different from everything else because it's like a chrome with black stripes. It's a beautiful fish. It's a beautiful fish. On top of that, some fish look beautiful, but they taste like crap, right? Let's just be honest. I kind of like the look of a carp. Carpers don't taste very good. I kind of like the look of a bass, like a largemouth bass, but it don't taste very good. Stripers taste really good. So they look good, they taste good, they battle good. So entertainment, right? You get the entertainment value off of it. And it continues. There's schooling fish entertainment. So there's just top water everywhere. Lure goes out there. As soon as it hits the water, you get smashed too. It's just like, oh my gosh. It checks off all the boxes. This species of fish checks off all the boxes. You get the help from the wildlife department. They actually stock it there for you to take too, which is another topic we kind of covered for, a good solid 15 minutes. It's also like a really good, like, it's good. It's very addictive. That's all I gotta say. Stripers are super addictive. Uh, What month is best fishing in Oklahoma? For stripers, I would have to say it depends on if you have a boat or not. If you don't have a boat, Oklahoma, the best times to fish is definitely during the springtime. Because all the fish come to the dam in the springtime. And unlike a lot of states, our lakes, a lot of our lakes are private, right? So at least the property around the lake is very private. So and if you don't have a boat, you can't go on to these lakes. They're all private property. But if you have a boat, then I would say the best time to fish for them is late spring, early summer. Best time, my personal opinion, best time. Because I like to fish open water. I like to fish deep. You can start trolling. I like to find them with my fish finder and I throw a big giant spoon at them or a big swim bait at them. And it's crazy, man. It's crazy fishing that time of year. Yep. Yep. Stripers, they always taste better fresh too. And the other thing about the harvesting is, I don't know if everybody here knows, but when you catch a striper, just don't throw it in the live well, especially if you plan to catch it. You should bleed it out. Bleeding it out is pretty simple. You just take a pair of scissors or a knife and you just cut the gills on the fish, and it'll bleed out in a minute. And when you bleed a fish out, that gamey smell, that gamey, like, you know what I'm talking about, the gamey smell, that smell gets cut in half when you go and when you're ready to cook the fish or prepare the fish. And on top of that, like some people like to soak it in like a brine of some kind, or some people soak it in Coca Cola. Some people soak it in uh, I don't even know. There's like infinite amounts of soaks you could do. Some people like to put it. They just leave it in water for 6 hours, and they say it takes care of the fishy smell. But I say the easiest way to do it is as soon as you catch a fish, if you plan to keep it, cut the gills, bleed them out. And I've never had anybody not like that. Like everybody who does it, they're like, yeah, you know what? It does actually taste a lot better. Yep. Striper fishing is addictive, man. Because everybody who's a seasoned striper fisherman always has a cool story to tell. I don't care how big your fish are. Always a cool story to tell. Always a cool story to tell. But the world of bass fishing, they probably won't tell you. It's super secretive. Okay, that's what I've learned. That's the difference between the two communities. Okay, they might tell you unless they win a tournament or unless you're in their little circle, they're never gonna tell you. They're never gonna tell you. But the striper fishing is a little bit different. Like they'll tell you they caught it, but they just won't tell you where. It's like, oh, here's a picture of my big old striper, like to a random stranger dude at the bait shop. Like, look at this, I caught this, but I'm not gonna tell you where I caught it though. But then you see all this evidence, it's like, oh yeah. Let me see. If he caught a striper that big and it's during the springtime, it's gotta be at the dam. or if it's like springtime, you caught a giant one, it's gotta be off the humps offshore. Or if it's the fall time, it's probably drop offs. Something like that. All right, so that's oh shoot, it's coming up on 2 hours, guys. Any last minute questions? I know there's 20 guys still on here. Last minute questions before we sign off. Last minute questions. So last 5-10 minutes. It doesn't have to be stripers again. It doesn't have to be stripers again. You can pretty much blurt out any question you want. And the guys in the comments are pretty knowledgeable too. So if I don't get to it and they answer it already, then I tend to just skip over it. All right. No more questions, so we're gonna call it a night. I know that the Thursdays are like really good. We get a lot of good information out. And if you ever get tired of listening to just striper stuff, come to Tuesdays. Tuesdays is all about bass. and we talk strategies, things like that over there. And for the striper guys, we don't talk strategies too much because there are no real tournaments in the striper world. So if you want to up your game, come to the bass world, listen to us talk strategies over there, and then reapply it to your striper game. And I guarantee you, you're going to be a better striper fisherman. Okay. All right. So sign off, guys. See you next Thursday.